There you
Okay,
go.
get you up and queued. So press click
Wait a
to
minute.
preview.
And I will give it the big shot first.
Come on, preview, you silly thing. Oh, something's happening.
We have to talk about your backdrop someday. It's a beautiful backdrop, but I can't get the whole thing in.
Ah,
Just the Inworld review. I want to get Metaverse Week in Review, but then it cuts off and the
uh,
purple and
mm.
blue shows in the back. You
Yeah,
know?
I can redesign. It was very hasty. Okay, get ready. Hang on.
Okay,
Let's all go quiet.
I'll mute.
Yeah, I'm getting ready to cue you. Oh, hang on, one more. And you're cued. 5, 4. Well, hello everybody, and welcome to yet another sparkling edition of our virtual space show or something or other. It's the Inworld review for the 10th of November, 19. No, I've done it again, haven't I? 2013. I must catch up with the modern age, virtual or not. I seem to think I'm in the last century half the time. Okay, it is 2013 and it is the 10th of November. Now we've got that right, I'll introduce the show again. This is coming to you as part of Metaverse Week in Review, of course. So our weekly roundup of all things immersive spaces. And we look also at interfacing tools to do with the future. And those of you who've just been watching the channel before we went live in World here will have actually seen a new clip by Draster Dupre, which is not one of his usual world builder things. It was just an illustration of him using the famed Leap device with Second Life. Rather interesting. The program he was using with it, I have a light version of that I downloaded, and as I reported a few weeks ago, I was able to do a few things, but not all the controls sort of work with Second Life. Dratster has a variant piece of software, which is a pay-for software, and I would just have a quick moan at the guys at Leap. Please make it possible to pay for the software if we wish to pay for it. At the moment, when I choose my country, the options for payment are restricted to MasterCard. I just want to use PayPal, and the fact that I can't is really annoying because I can't get the piece of software that Dratster was using. But I think if you've been watching that film, it's all fairly self-explanatory. Not very good for filming at the moment because you get these visual sort of particle effects produced by the Leap motion itself to sort of help see what you're doing. But of course, these appear on camera if you were to try filming that way. And I think Petlove would agree that you don't really want to film for an hour by holding your hand up in the air and moving your hands to operate the camera.
Ew.
Yeah, no, exactly. We need it. We need it for slightly more simple things like flipping pages or just moving forward and backwards, I think. But a great little demo from Chester there, very sort of eloquently narrated to show how excited he was, basically. So that aside, we'll just move on to some highlights of things going on in what we call the greater metaverse, the world outside the closed sims like Second Life, Inworlds, etc. And go down my list basically. One of the grids on the open grid is sadly closing. 3D that's 3D apparently is closing. It's one of the smaller open sim grids, but always sad to see one sort of disappearing. And I'm not entirely sure that I mentioned this last week, but the news came in about the same time as the show was on. But there is an open sim grid called Avi Worlds, AVI Worlds. and they've taken a step to, unfortunately, they have closed off the hypergrid and region connect. I'm not entirely sure why. I mean, the implication is it's security concerns, although those security concerns on the hypergrid tend to have been addressed more and more as weeks go by. So for whatever reason, they've detached themselves from the hypergrid for the moment. Hopefully, we will welcome them back at some point in the future. Okay. Interesting blog post in the week. The early one for this one is Hella Bruno. That's HELLERBRUNO.wordpress.com. And the title of the post, which was on November the 3rd, is Salon Berlin Virtual Worlds as Modern Third Places. The gist of this reminds me of an event here in London a few years ago where China Tracy was invited to the ICA in London, not the ICA, sorry, the Serpentine Gallery in Hyde Park here, where she showed her virtual city. And it was all part of a greater event, which was looking, the theme of the event was called the New Pavilions. And the gist of this article from Salon Berlin is that third places are what they describe as informal social meeting places. In other words, the kind of thing that we would maybe have identified with pavilions. A pavilion space in real life has always tended to be a social congregating place. And this article basically is looking at third places in virtual worlds. It's part of a blog called Immersive Learning Environments, and it goes into some depth, so you might like to check that out. Obviously, conceptually visualizing third places and pavilions is a very good way of looking at the social aspect of virtual worlds. Right. Now, rather interesting. I suspect Tara may have a bit more to say on this, so I'll keep it short. I've actually got Second Life Newser's blog here, SLNewser, NEWSER.blogspot.com, which is Bixel Shufton, of course. And his report is that Linden Lab have settled a property rights lawsuit out of court, and this seems to be a direct follow-up to a judge's ruling a couple of days later. I think it was on Monday, which actually said the plaintiffs could go ahead to sue Linden Lab over their change of policy and their loss of property ownership. Now, I hasten to add that this is the outcome of a court case that's been pending for a considerable amount of time, and it doesn't actually have anything directly to do with the or the hullabaloo that's going on at the moment over Linden Labs' terms of service changes. It was originally filed in 2010 by 4 former residents who were banned from Second Life and had their cash and items online cut off, and basically they are, they've taken Linden Labs to court because they didn't think Linden Labs had the right to steal their cash or their virtual items. And they have been given the go-ahead to pursue this further. And it seems that in response to that, Linden Lab have hastily decided to make an out-of-court settlement rather than have this come into court. If there is anything else on that, and Tara knows about it, I'll leave it to her. But bit of serious sort of news there from the week. I have my next link is blogs.cs.st-andrews.ac.uk. And it's called Open Virtual Worlds. Basically, this is an academic site that have actually been involved in quite a few open sim projects, and they've posted a full list of them online at this particular address. There's a lot here. There's a version of the viewer with modifications to work with Connect. There's a virtual time window. Reconstructions for virtual actors, a whole load of, I'm not even going to read the list, but there's a whole load of projects that have been involved in, which they've now published openly online at that address. So check that out if you're looking for open sim resources or just want to see what's been going on. And finally, Meta Pundit, that's META pundit.tumblr.com. On November the 4th, that would be midweek, they published an article called Extending OpenSim, a Primer. And it's sort of related to the last post, really. If you're interested in not only having your own OpenSim installation and working on the hypergrid and stuff like this, it's a sort of a guide to ways you might want to extend your installation by adding your own touches. So interesting article there. Otherwise, there is not a huge amount in the greater metaverse, as I say, to report this week. In fact, I think, scrolling around here, that actually is it. So we have a fair amount of Second Life and Inworld specific news to come up later, but for the moment, I'm going to hand over the microphone to my partner, Tara Yates, here for her roundup of the week. Welcome, Tara.
Thank you, Mel, and greetings from the Pacific Northwest, and where we we and the rest of the U.S. of A. have settled into it being no longer daylight savings time. You know, you get that day or two when it seems like, oh, it's a lot easier to get up because it's lighter in the morning, but that doesn't last long. Anyhow, well, I have a new friend who, you know, I always do this little show and tell and see what new critters or interesting things I've run across on the grid. And this week's special guest is a brand new animated kangaroo from D-Lab. And unfortunately, I missed the 50 Linden Friday special on it. That was Friday, and today's Sunday. So it was kind of an oops, I didn't see the notice in time. But I went ahead and picked one up anyway because I think they're hopelessly cute. You know, it's a kangaroo with a joey. And she moves around. Well, they don't move, they don't get up and hop around, but they, you know, their heads move around and stuff, which is pretty fun. Very cute. And available at D-Lab. D-Lab produces some, I would say probably the premier for producing cute critters. Not necessarily super realistic, but very cute, quite consistently. So if you've not visited there, by all means do. It's fun. Anyhow, so that's this week's critter. Moving right along to the requisite Eat Your Vegetables segment. The various upgrades, they actually postponed completely any SIM rollouts on release candidates this past week due to a bug they found at the last minute. And they said, oops, nope, we're not going to do that. But an interesting item I picked up from an RAPA's blog about one that is a change that is coming. And this is, I think, a server change. If you happen to be a region owner or are on a or have region estate manager rights someplace, you want to exercise significant caution on accepting items and then resing them from someone who you don't know. There seems to be a bit of an issue with Trojan objects that it's a griefing situation where estate managers or owners can be added to the region's ban list or teleported home. It's apparently achieved through the use of a Trojan object in that the object appears perfectly innocuous until passed to the estate owner or manager, and which res then will manipulate the ban list via one of the LSL commands. For example, this was the description from Maestro Linden at the third-party viewer meeting this week. Described the scenario thus: someone gives you a cute kitty, which you then res on your parcel, but the script with the per function also has a manipulate ban list function. Since you, the parcel owner, own the kitty, the script can therefore do the operation. And this particular Trojan is not restricted to manipulating manage estate access. It can also clear ban lists with a different LSL command. What's the other? The function is being changed so the owner is notified and is given the option to allow the function to run in stealth mode. The problem is that by the time the notification is received, the Trojan script has done its job. So the solution is not ideal. Anyway, so if you happen to be if you happen to match up with that description of being either an estate manager or an estate owner, that means you own a sim, or you have estate manager rights on a sim or sims. Um, it's just, I think, a word to the wise to be very careful about resing stuff that came from people you don't know. You know, it's kind of like in the old days when, you know, it took a while for people to get smart to the fact that if you get an email from somebody you don't know with something attached to it, don't open it. Same principle here. Anyway, so there's the vegetable section for today. Um, Moving right along, you know, always have these little segments of comments on things that are in Hamlet Owl's blog this week. And actually, there were two things that caught my attention this week. First off, there's a lead article about a new virtual world game called Ever Jane, which is the brainchild of Judy Tyrer, who was a senior engineering manager at Linden Lab. And it basically, it's a game, it's a role play game in the Regency England. It's similar to traditional role playing games, but the similarities are, and it's not a fighting game. You're manipulating let me see if I can find the description here. It's the focus is on playing characters, building stories, and quest to.
Is it just me, or did we just lose Tara?
We did lose Tara.
Oh, right. Okay, we'll just hopefully she'll reconnect in a second.
Poor thing.
That is actually a very interesting game. There's also been some news this week. Basically, some academic institutions have been taking archives from the British Library and recreating sort of historical
that's
builds.
neat.
And I think this is sort of connected with this, but I think Tara was about to say that it's although it is called a game, it really is a kind of social platform. It involves role playing, but you know, it's not a matter of running around killing people or the usual
Right.
stuff. It's a matter of immersing yourself in the era, rather
Does
like
it have levels? Are there goals?
I don't know. I don't know.
I'm back.
Welcome
I think.
back.
Welcome back, Tara.
Welcome back. All right. I don't know. I have no. It sounds like at least we got as far as my trying to describe Ever Jane. What is probably most noteworthy is they've been working on this for about a year, and they currently have a Kickstarter project going. And so if you go to Kickstarter.com and type in Ever Jane, 2 words, you will find both a video that describes what they're up to, and the opportunity to help support it for their Kickstarter project, which their goal is to have funding for the next couple of years while they finish building it out. There's apparently a prototype that you can actually play. I didn't actually go in and do that, but it looks pretty fun. And what particularly struck me is with the kinds of character traits that you're kind of choosing to weigh and measure for your character. They're personal attributes of a very different sort than the typical sword and sorcery kind of thing. And it really strikes me as something that's going to have could have a huge attractiveness to females. And actually, one of the comments to the Hamlet article panned it on that basis. And my reaction was, wait a minute, hold it, everybody. There's entirely too little in the world of gaming that addresses different kinds of personal characteristics and qualities. So you know, this looks very cool. I mean, it's Regency period England, so you know, women aren't known for being, you know, liberated at that point, but it sounds really fun. So check it out. I think it's worth checking out. And speaking of role playing and and games and stuff, Hamlet also commented on a posting by Botgirl Questy this week, where she talks about feeling like she sort of become disconnected from Second Life. and the basically the question being, is it Second Life's changing or is it me changing? And so that was the question that Hamlet posted. And there were a few people who felt it was Second Life, but I think the weight was far more on the side of um, changes that the individual goes through that may or may not continue to line up with a level of Second Life participation. And that's certainly my sense of what happens when people change their online connections. And I think it takes. I know from personal experience, it takes place. It's certainly not just an online phenomenon. I've found myself that in my own life that I have gone through various uh, periods of time when I sort of I get pulled into something new, or I get tired of something old, and then something new comes along, and that when that occurs, a lot of other things shift. So it's kind of like I can, there are people who come into my life at those junctures, and people who kind of fall out of my life at those junctures. So it's an interesting sort of interesting, I think, to look at her post and to read the comments about it. Bot Girl comments about what was going on when she joined in 2008, and she talks about the utopian immersionist movement. It was at its peak. And commenting that for a time it seemed like the approach was viable. There were international scientific and religious conferences promoted by people known only by their virtual identities, well-known creatives who seemed to be making a living creating virtual goods. And she knew a number of seemingly blissful couples who knew each other solely by their virtual identities. And she says, many of us felt we were actualizing new human potential by living significant parts of our lives through avatar identities. We thought we were going to change the world. Unfortunately, the approach proved unsustainable. That's all subject to discussion. So I'm just going to toss that out there as some subject to discussion.
Indeed.
That is really interesting, and it has a lot of implications for business and social change and growth.
Yeah, I think we'll bring this into the conversation when we open up in a minute. Actually,
Yeah,
very
yeah,
good,
that's why I wanna,
very good point. Yeah.
yeah, I think it's one we can kick around. Okay, on the subject that refuses to die, the terms of service stuff. It seems that yeah, the discussion continues here, and oh phooey, I hate it when names get away from me.
Letters to Peter Gray.
No.
Oh.
Tatter
Kylie?
The
no,
nice
no.
thing
Tatter
about names is there are
has
so many.
yes, so many names, so little mind. Uh, all right, Tatter Nino, who had been very invisible on the blogosphere for a while, chimed in a week ago with some comments about the terms of service change, and she's come back with a second article this week, and I'm only going to refer to it and send you off to read it if you're interested. Her new post comes at this from a completely different perspective. She says, all right, all you armchair Second Life lawyers, let's turn the whole debate about Second Life's new terms of service on its head, because looking at this from another perspective might be very helpful. The question will be, what rights do you think Linden Lab needs in its terms of service to carry on the Second Life business as it stands today without getting mired in lawsuits? You can go read the rest at her blog.
That ought to trigger a very interesting set of discussions.
Yeah.
The discussion thread is definitely very meaty, and I'm not even going to pretend to summarize it. So.
I can summarize it in 7
Okay,
words.
we'll give our own thoughts on that in a minute. Actually, okay,
Yes.
Tyler, carry on.
Yes, carry on. All right. Next item. Rather an unannounced or unsung departure in the past week, actually on Monday. The 12 teen regions that were created when they closed the teen grid closed officially Monday. And as might be expected, there were a few people who commented on this. It turns out they were called CL regions. CL stands for Chimp Labs.
That's rotten.
No, I think that
Chip
was
Labs.
yeah, that was the team's uh,
It's sick.
tag for them. Anyway, there were apparently only about 15 teen avatars who were still hanging their hats in the TNCL regions as far as where their home base was. So one can sort of understand why 12 regions would get closed when there's that little traffic in them.
Yeah, it's certainly not a business model, is it? Yeah, fair
Yeah,
enough.
it's not.
I think
Yes.
there. How many were there on the teen grid when they closed that? I bet it was under 100. Probably under 50.
Interesting.
um,
Anyway.
I don't know. Anyway, yeah.
yeah, it's probably in my notes someplace, but I can't tell you at this point. Anyway, last night, last item, an interesting event coming up starting on the 15th, which is this coming week. Yes. Shoetopia. Um, this is two Sims full of the best shoes in Second Life. Shootopia will also have about 35 gachas scattered around the Sims, and yeah, okay, yeah, and there'll be some prizes for various things. And what I thought was particularly noteworthy about this is a benefit. It's a benefit for an organization called Souls, SOLES, for Souls, SOULS, which is, and that's a number 4, is a global nonprofit institution dedicated to fighting the devastating impact and perpetuation of poverty. And they collect, guess what, shoes and clothes, which are then distributed in various ways. They're based in Nashville, but they're international, and they're committed to the highest standards of operating and governance, and holds a 4-star rating with Charity Navigator, which is top drawer. And they currently are running an announcement on their site as of this morning that they're currently focused on helping out with the results of the typhoon in the Philippines. So you can go to SOLES number 4 SOULS.org and get more information about them. And obviously, I'm sure that helping support the Shootopia coming up soon will be a good way to also make small contributions to help out over there. That's it for me.
Well, thank you, Tara. Handful there, and in fact, quite a lot to discuss. Something I did mean to mention actually is that when you mentioned Bolt Girl, in fact, and it's going to take me a second to click on my programs and find the name, but I followed a link from Bolt Girl in the week and found a program which is in beta and can be got for free on the web called Plotagon, Plotagon. Now, this isn't directly related to what we do, but it's rather interesting. It allows you it has a lot of preset machinima environments. Well, it's only got a few actually, but there again, it's in beta. And it allows you to write a script and cue actions from avatars. And then the software actually creates the machinima for you based not on your filming ability, but on your script. In other words, it automates the movement of an avatar from sitting at a bar to going over to a table and sitting down and having a conversation with another avatar. It's very rudimentary and you can't add your own voice into it. It's predefined voices and things. But conceptually, I thought it was rather interesting because it's obviously trying to take a new approach to what it sees as a rapidly growing machinima community, be it inhabited machinima that's filmed in places like Second Life here, or indeed using Movie Storm and iClone and the other offline tools you have. All of those tend to be about building and then filming and compiling the film of what you've built, etc. Whereas this takes a totally different attitude, and that is you write a script like you're writing a film script, and then it interprets the script and creates the movements and the voices and everything that you've assigned to the different actors, the different avatars. Interesting idea. I think you do download, and it takes quite a while to download and install the program. And to actually use it, you have to log into an account, which you can create for free. Great fun to play with, I must admit. It's somewhat limited. I suspect, however, that despite the fact it seems to run on your local system, the fact that you have to be logged in probably means some of the work is actually being done from their own servers online. but quite an interesting thing to check out. So do a Google search for Plotagon, plot as in the plot, and agon as in gone away, I suppose. Well, no, that's not right, is it? You get the idea. Plotagon. And as I mentioned earlier, well, Tara had a brief offline period. There are, I forget which university it is, but one of the universities, and I think they may be connected with the Jane thing. They're basically taking archive information from the British Library and converting sort of historical replicas into 3D, and that could be an interesting thing to see. Whether the British Library is sponsoring it because they want 3D installations of their own archives, I'm not sure. But it's Tara is referring to the Jane thing being Regency period, but a lot of these builds, as it were, seem to be everything from medieval forwards. Wherever information is available at the British Library, they're sort of incorporating it into the simulations. So very interesting sounding stuff there.
Yeah, the Jane project is not only Regency England, but specifically Jane Austen is the inspiration. So
yeah, which is a huge market, literary market, I would think. So I would see it actually sort of picking up quite a lot of traction. Okay, well, we have quite a lot to discuss. I've also got various other sort of in-world news things and stuff that I'm going to bring into the conversation as we go. But I think you've heard most of them already, but I am going to introduce the voices of our guests that you heard lurking in the background. First of all, welcome return. We haven't seen here for a long time. He used to be a regular on our Real World version that we can review many years ago. It's Joel Savard. Hi, Joel, and welcome.
Hey, Mel. Thanks. A real world version, huh? Oh yeah, I remember that.
Yeah, and wonders, you even turned up as a human avatar today, so we can film you. This is actually even more exciting.
Don't tempt me. Don't tempt me.
I see. Last time.
Go ahead.
Last time you were here, I think you actually did join this show, sort of about halfway through, but you arrived as something rather bigger than the Sim. We had an interesting time with the camera on that one, if I recall. Anyway, we'll be back to you for a little roundup shortly. I'm also, of course, joined once again on the panel by Petlove Petshop, our wonderful camera woman. So welcome, Pet. And yes, Pet's muted.
And I was saying a very warm hello. Thank you.
Thank you too. Now, this is actually rather interesting because amongst the other things that Pet dutifully films, well, there's mini bulletins, but I think it's every fortnight, is a show called Happy Hunting, which of course we show here in replay. And in fact, there was a new version this week, which is coming up later on Week in Review in 2 or 3 hours' time in this lifestyle bit. We've got new Happy Hunting and a second episode of the other new program, SL Fails, which is informative but also rather amusing. So we got a second episode out already, so that's nice. And we will be showing them later. But today, I'm really pleased to welcome one of the hosts, if not the host, of Happy Hunting, and that is. I've got as far as Rosamoo, and I've blanked on the second name, Mendleson. Rosamoo Mendleson. So welcome, Rosamoo.
Thank you. It's good to be here. And Rosamoo is fine. I'm not sure that there are any other Rosamoos here except one of my alts.
Right. Yeah.
So Rosamoo is just fine.
That's like me. There's a Mal Burns, which is probably an account I opened long before I could get to work. And then there's Mal Burns writer and Mal Burns footman. There aren't any other Mal Burns, thank goodness. But yeah, so we have quite a few exciting things to talk about there, as well as watching your show a wee bit later. So in fact, I'm going to start with you Rosamoo, since we've got you here for a specific meeting. I mean, it'd be nice to talk about Happy Hunting and all the various other things as we go along. But the main focus at the moment is it's actually an awards system, isn't it, called the Hunties that you're going to be launching. Maybe you'd like to start off telling us about that.
Well, yes, my partner and I run a hunt blog called huntsl.com, and and in conjunction with Happy Hunting, for which I am the hunt reporter, not the host.
Mm.
Thank goodness. I have
Okay.
been more.
Okay.
I don't want to do that role. Um,
You can do it. You've done it.
Shh, no, no. We decided that it's time to do some recognition of the people who participate, the merchants who put a lot of effort into participating in creating the hunts. If it weren't for the merchants and the gifts they provide, there would be no hunts. And they do, of course, do it to some degree with self-service in mind because it's a good promotional tool for them, for many of the stores. But I think for myself and for many of them, it's just fun to do it and it's inspiring and it's so infrequent that they get recognized and reminded and thanked. It's sort of an unusual event. So we thought it would be time to do a little recognition of, the people who are great at this, who are
Is it?
consistently out there.
Is this? I mean, the awards. Is this geared to the people who put on the hunts, or to the stores that so often participate in the prices and locations and everything else, or is it everything?
We've chosen 15 categories. The majority of them are actual will go to the stores for a particular hunt gift in a category, like
Right.
women's fashion or women's accessories, body parts, which is skin, shapes, hair, makeup kind of thing, animations, furniture. Those are all different categories. But also, we do have a category for the best organized or the best organizer,
Mm.
the best grid hunt, the best store sim hunt, the best hunt theme, because almost every hunt has a unique theme.
Mm.
Um,
Well,
well,
both
almost unique.
yeah, both Tara and I here, for one, are very fond of hunting, and I've always said it's a very good way. If you're new to something like Second Life, well, relatively new, I think I better say, rather than naturally new. It's a great way to explore the grid because you frequently don't need a stash of lindens to actually buy things. You actually go hunting instead, and depending on the hunt, it can be quite challenging, either in the hide and seek sort of terminology or solving clues. And we look at
Hmm.
people like the past masters, really, like Mad P,
Oh,
who generate these really complex things. And one I haven't been to yet, I think, is a sort of hunt, or it might just be an interactive experience, which everybody's talking about, is the well. Which seems to have been blogged by everybody this week as a landmark sort of interactive experience. I'm not sure it's a hunt, so I won't go into that.
I'm not
Um,
familiar with it, so probably it's not a hunt. But I've also been distracted by real life lately, so I'm not
Yeah, it's not a
a
hunt, it's
spicy
an
person.
adventure. It's an adventure kind of thing.
It's just an
Ah,
adventure, yeah. But I mean, I look at Mad P, for example, and if there was a category for them, I'd imagine they'd probably come number one for the way they design their HUDs and the complexity of their HUDs and hunts. And they obviously do. You do these days pay for to enter their hunts, but the amount you pay is a pittance compared with the
oh,
value of what you get as prizes. And it
and
really is a bit of an adventure. Whereas there are other hunts, as you say, like at Halloween and the winter hunts coming on now, which tend to be more geared to just exploring locations and finding the prizes. But it's given how big Second Life is, and it really is colossal when you think of it, you can actually find every location in a lifetime. So we tend to report on the best, but going on a hunt, yeah, it brings a whole new perspective to it because in order to follow the hunt, you will sometimes accidentally come across a sim or something that you just fall in love with, and you have to landmark it immediately.
uh-huh.
So the hunts really do provide a function over and above the hunts themselves. I mean, obviously, different people are going to tune into hunts that take their fancy. Be it a medieval thing or a winter thing or a fashion thing as opposed to a animations thing. But um, they're great exploratory sort of activity, aren't they?
They are, and on almost every time I do a hunt, I find at least one new store. It's very
Mm.
rare. And in fact, there's one series of hunts that's only for new stores. So almost every time you go on that hunt, you will find a variety of new different stores that are just, under 6 months old
Oh,
to check out. And I have to say about Mad Peas, honestly, I love doing Mad Peas, and I like doing it more for the doing of it than for the gifts at the end. I just,
Yes.
you get
Yeah.
to the
Yes.
end of you get all these gifts. It's like, it's almost a letdown because you want to just keep going and going.
Yeah, and I've got so many mad pea hunts boxed up in my inventory. All the prizes they give you at the end. Half of them never unpacked. Oh, I think, oh, I'm gonna love that, and somehow it never gets unpacked. And
Uh,
my criticism actually with their hunts is they're almost too immersive. You start on one, and suddenly you don't have time to do anything else because you're busy trying to get to the end of this hunt you've signed up for. So it's very engaging, but they
yes,
can.
once you've invested in the HUD, you really feel obligated to finish it.
Yeah, exactly. So somebody calls me and says, "Sorry, can't do anything now. I'm on a hunt." And it's complex. I've got a clue to solve, and it's going to take me 3 days. I do them with Tara here quite a bit actually, and I think two minds combined on a hunt certainly speeds it up a wee bit.
Yes, I always have more fun when I'm doing it with my partner.
Mm.
Um, One of the things I do have to say, and going back a little bit to the Linden Labs and the terms of service, which is
Oh yeah.
a huge category thing to talk about, but one of the wonderful things that they do that I think is not as it's not appreciated is that they make it possible to participate in the world without spending any money if you don't have it. And hunts are one of the ways that you can get out there and, you know, equip a place
It's
to
so
live
true. You
or
could fill a whole sim and
yes.
dress
And
yourself and your friends.
Yeah.
it's wonderful that this is an opportunity for people who are not able to put a lot of money into something like
It's
this.
a great way to
Um,
go. For
It
yeah.
is.
yeah.
It sure beats being hooked into pole dancing when you come in and wasting an
Well,
hour
that's
to get
another conversation.
wasting an hour to get 10 minutes.
There are
Yes.
racy hunts. There are some racy hunts too.
Oh
Ooh.
If
yeah.
that's your
Don't.
bag, there are hunts for absolutely everything.
Well,
Almost.
lots of the role playing communities, which tend to be, I mean, they are in Second Life, but they tend to be
Mhm.
social cliques that are particularly into a particular kind of role play, and maybe they go to similar sims, but they don't necessarily partake necessarily. Of course, they can do on the greater grid itself, as it were. They're here to just role play in those small communities, and they have hunts all of their own.
We've met
And
several. Mhm.
to actually attract interest in their communities. A medieval role play community, for example,
Yep.
they're lovely. They're enjoying their role play and everything else, but it's not all bondage or anything like that. I mean, they want people to be interested in their role play communities. So opening up a hunt and presenting it to the greater grid is a perfect way to do that, to introduce
Mhm.
people
Mhm.
into their environments. In fact, I like the medieval hunts. They're almost as good
Oh.
as the steampunk hunts.
Yes, you've got the steampunk world and you've got the Renaissance hunts, which are I don't know if they're in their eighth or their 10th version.
Mm,
The medieval fantasy hunt I think is easily 8 at this point. I lose track of the numbers at some point. The Gorian community has hunts that are just Gorian themed very often.
mm.
And also, I mean, we don't talk about it too much, and it's not present because I think I tend to be around adults more. But there are kid themed hunts here and family themed hunts that are very
There's
PG.
everything. Mhm.
Yeah, can't imagine anything that isn't around.
What about breedables? I don't think I've seen breedable hunts.
Oh,
Actually,
there are breedable
Are
hunts.
there? Okay.
Oh
I
yes,
must have missed
we've
them.
had several.
Okay.
I have to just a
Was
little
sleeping.
aside here. I almost burst into laughter when Tara closed her thing with the shoe fair thing because it's only a couple of weeks since we had the presentation with the guy who's doing breathable shoes, and I suddenly thought, well, if they've taken off, you could probably have just stick all the red shoes onto one sim, and you've got a fair all of its own. I still trying to get over breathable shoes, but
Mel,
that's
did you really just say breedable shoes?
I did.
Yeah,
I
Joel. I was gonna say you. I
I was
wondered
just thinking
if you
it's about
knew.
time to into the conversation, Joel. I mean, I guess I hope
Sorry.
that's what It's no secret that, of course, you are a former Linden yourself from many years ago. So I was actually quite keen when we came to, um, rather than put your foot in it at all or anything. Have you got any thoughts on, or have you even noticed any
Can
of
you
this
wear them?
debates about terms of service and stuff? I was going to
Oh,
ask.
I was still completely stuck on how in the world you breed shoes, but okay, sure.
Well,
You
yeah.
don't want to know. You do not want to
It's
know.
where you just don't want to leave them standing next to each other in your closet or anything, right?
It's
I
no
mean, it's
worse
come
than
on.
rabbits, you know.
It is actually extremely complex. I mean, it's like a lot of the breedable pets, but I just can't quite get my head around the idea that shoes are.
Did my volume go down? I'm
Pet.
concerned about the volume here.
No, you're fine on Skype to
Yeah,
me.
you're
Okay,
fine.
all right, just
Okay.
checking.
Yeah.
So actually, Mel, you asked me, I thought a more serious question, but I don't remember what it was. Sorry.
Oh, well, I am. I know you're not particularly engaged with Second Life as much anymore, but I mean,
Right.
now have you been at all following the controversy over the forever,
Controversy.
ever never-ending changes to terms of services and
Yeah, I mean, I've been following it, but not closely. And I mean, just to be quite clear, I haven't worked for the company for years at this point.
oh yeah, yeah, no,
So, anything I say has absolutely no basis in anything that is factual within the doors. um, but I mean, I think, well, it's kind of the whole thing about ownership to me is a little bit odd in that people make a big deal about ownership of property within Second Life, and yet the content itself is not useful anywhere outside of Second Life. So, on some levels, um, I'm trying to get my head around, okay, I understand they changed the terms of service. I understand the implications in terms of how people feel about it.
mm.
But does it actually change anything?
Well, I think in Rosamoo, we have actually focused on this in previous weeks, and I think there's two things relevant there. One is that potentially, print-based content probably isn't much use, but it's possible that with Mesh, that Linden could export that and
Mm,
make it available to other places through their Desira platform
true,
or whatever
true,
it's called.
true.
But Rosamu also mentioned. Sorry, wasn't no? I think it was Tara mentioned the Nino's blog, asking, taking it from the angle of Linden Labs, what do they get out of this?
Right,
And I don't know that we can really know. We just noticed the change, but they do have a game
right.
distribution platform now, which they're putting a lot of energies into.
Yeah,
Arguably, I agree with you that all this wonderful prim mangling that's been done over the past decade or so is really confined to Second Life.
Decade.
It's actually more things like Mesh and stuff like that that could be
yeah.
useful elsewhere.
I mean, I
Um,
guess that on some levels it feels like that this is a sort of a corollary to the terms of service of other online social networks and all, where because they're a globally distributed system, technically they need to replicate this stuff and distribute it all over the place for people to actually use the system.
yeah.
And I have to wonder whether some of this is based on what you have to claim in terms of ownership to be able to operate this kind of a system. I don't know.
We had a guest
But
on who explained that exactly, and there is an element of that, but there's much more than that too.
Yeah.
Agenda
I
was
mean,
explaining it too.
Okay.
it did occur to me, and actually, this not an aspect I've actually raised before, as far as I know, but is the fact that somebody uploads, I don't know, a wonderful piece of furniture in Second Life, and I go and buy it off them. They get the income from that, and it's in my inventory. I haven't got any copyright in that, so I simply bought a copy to use. But it could be argued at the inventory level that every instance of that object that's ever rezzed anywhere is a copy in itself. In other words, the copy I've bought and the copy somebody else has bought
Sure.
is a copy, and therefore Linden Labs, just to run the engine, have to be in a position to
Well,
copy
that's
those.
to distribute the content. I mean,
Yeah.
that's actually, if you look, I think I remember, and I haven't looked at it for some years, but I think that there are similar clauses if you look at YouTube and even photo sharing sites,
Mm.
The way that this technology works is by shipping the bits all over the world and presenting it on your computer.
Yeah.
And it's basically rendering copies globally. And so they need the opportunity to make their own copies, if you will, and distribute them if they're going to show the image to somebody on the other end of the world.
Yeah. I mean, it varies a lot. I mean, you go to somewhere
Right.
like Flickr, for example, and it's a walled garden. You can't download copies half the time.
Right.
They go to great lengths to make sure you are at Flickr to look at the
but
image. Whereas other photo sharing sites, for example, are the other way around. You can download happily from them, you can link to them, and they do the same thing, but using an open policy.
yeah, I mean, I guess, but to go, I promise I won't go too deep tech, but I mean, if you look at a 3D thing like this, what's actually happening is they're shipping the geometry, all the triangles and geometric stuff, down to your computer into the graphics card,
Mm.
and sending the graphics files, the images, and your graphics card in your computer is the thing that is wrapping those graphics images around the geometry.
Yeah.
So literally, it's like sending you. I mean, it's sort of like the digital equivalent of sending you a kit for a car and having it be assembled in your garage for you to use, as opposed to, you drive a car off the lot. and so I think that's maybe part of the whole discussion, is that the way this 3D technology works is all the bits and pieces are being sent in bits and pieces form and assembled in the remote computer. Even if then there's some protection to keep you from copying it to your hard disk, it's still going to you that way.
Well, I'm reminded again here of I think I've lost my lip flap. I don't know why, but sometimes happens. My voice is on, so why I'm not lip flapping, I don't know.
It looks okay, Mel.
Oh, it does on yours. Okay, wonderful. Right, I'm flapping away. Very good. I don't want to lose the realism of this show, do we? Right. Yeah, I'm actually thinking about things like YouTube again. They don't, as far as I can tell, profess to own any kind of copyright in what you upload to them. I mean, what they do demand, and it's the nature of the business, is that they're your distributor. When you upload it to their service, they want it to get around, they want it to be seen on their service, and you go to YouTube or the various mechanisms of that you can get to them, and that's they are the distributor of your content.
Right.
So as a distributor, that's not in question. If it was simply Linden Labs wanting to be a distributor via or whatever, it's another platform. That I think is taken for granted in a way.
Yeah.
But it's the specific thing that says ownership of copyright is really the clincher here, because copyright always belongs to a creator.
Right.
And Photoshop, Adobe do not own any painting I do in Photoshop.
I'm sure that given a court case, an artist could hold their copyright through to Linden Labs.
And plus, when you buy something, it's yours. They can't just take it away from you. If they can, then we can take stuff away from them too.
If you agree to a legal document, you've agreed to a terms of service.
No, not one that was shoved down your throat and also written in a category that isn't even acknowledged as legal law in California. It's not even legal what they wrote or did. That type of agreement is just.
The point that I'm making, though, is that if you use a service that has a terms of service and you knowingly accept it, then you have agreed to a legal agreement.
If knowingly
whether you
accepted,
like it or not, you've agreed.
If you knew.
Rosamoo, you're trying to, I can see you trying to.
Rosamoo, yeah. Sorry, Rosamoo.
I have this very different approach about it. And because I hear people sort of starting back when they did the adult Sims and separated everybody out. And actually, my partner had a great deal of loss from that in terms of revenue and what happened to him because he was running an adult Sim. But my gut told me at that moment when that was going on that Linden Labs had probably been driven to that from threats of lawsuits. And the other, and I suspect that there's something going on behind the scenes that we don't know anything about that tends to drive when things like this happen.
Yep.
But we also have to remember, and it's a little bit about looking at it from a different approach. This is not a democracy. We are not living in a nation where we get to to elect senators and write the laws, or House of Lords.
Mhm.
Um, it, this is a business, and we are all able to participate in helping this business to continue. But a business is primarily a dictatorship. I think in the Linden Labs case, it's a very benign dictatorship, but businesses are not democracies, and
Well, how,
we need to think about what is our real relationship.
The
We are not in
rippee.
a
No, the
well,
rip
world.
off. The
something I
ripped
meant,
off.
something I mentioned last week, though I think is rather interesting, right? Is that although you can play games in Second Life, there are games in here. It is not a game platform. It is principally a social communication platform with lots of added potential. It can be almost anything you want. But that means it is community driven. Even the content here, Linden Labs actually have nothing that hasn't, except the mechanism for the platform. They don't. Everything in the world is created by its users. Now there is a game called Eve Online. They are based in Sweden, and they're just a game. Arguably they are what you're describing. They run a platform. They've got lots of gamers in it, loyal residents, as you might call them, but they actually chose um, to form a democratic kind of government committee of users in it. And in the real world, they fly this government, the people who are elected to this government are actually flown once a year to Sweden for a meeting with the
Wow.
people who run the platform. So they realize the social nature of the platform, and they realize that they can't live without that.
Mm.
So they have given a certain amount of governance of the world over to the users. Now, the users have no control over the serious sort of business goings on and things like that. But in terms of the everyday policies of running the world and how the world runs, the users do actually have an official governmental say.
Right.
And Eve Online, this is serious stuff. They fly people from the ends of the earth to Sweden once a year so that they can have a
Serious
House of Parliament.
conversation.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So that's a
Let's
game. That is a
talk.
that is a
Let's
strict.
talk Linden Labs into that then.
Yeah.
But
Now,
Send me to
as of
Sweden. I'll
now, it
help
doesn't
them.
exist.
They can send me to Sweden anytime they want to.
I think in Linden Lab's case, it was a case of flying you to California and San Francisco. But
Go,
it's
go.
but it just strikes me that they are running a platform, and we are all greatly appreciative of the platform. And they pioneered, the things that have now been done on OpenSim and everything else. But they don't have a platform without the users.
God, I get
Not
tired.
just because they don't have customers, but because we bring the content in and the money in that actually keeps the platform running.
Absolutely.
And it's not the sort of environment where you can just ignore the community because it's so community based. You can't just turn around and say we're changing a policy and without regard for your users.
Right.
There will be a point at which they might at some point make some silly decision that really will resonate with everybody in Second Life and say, well, go, I'm going to leave if this keeps on.
But
Yeah.
but
Well,
Mal,
well,
but they can do that. They may pay a price for it, but they can in fact do that if that's what they choose. They may not choose to pay deal with the consequences. They may not like the consequences of something like that.
Mm. Joel,
But it is
uh,
it is within their purview because it is their
It
business.
is. It's true. It's a business, and I don't think they're really evil. They are just trying to do what they have to do. And there's been, it's interesting because so many people understand so many different parts of the whole situation, which is unfathomable to begin with. you know?
Joel, sorry, Joel, you were about to come in there, I think.
sure. Just a
Yeah.
couple of things. One is, by the way, I'm not actually sure if that meeting is in Sweden. Eve Online CCP is in Reykjavik, Iceland.
Oh,
So,
okay. Okay. Sorry.
Close.
which is
I could well have got that wrong.
which is an even cooler place to go in my book. But that's
Or warmer actually.
well, I kind of actually, it's the funny thing is, I kind of, Eve Online is one of these, out in the middle of space, races created, battling for survival kind of things, and well, this is one where I don't have any surprise about the idea that the company that decided to create this dark universe of battle for survival with suns light years away is in Reykjavik, Iceland.
So it's the John Lennon peace tower, and
But
there's lots of nice comfy geezers bubbling in the ground, I gather.
Yeah,
So-
it's warm
so-
there.
Instant jacuzzi.
yeah. So the other thing actually though is a more serious thing was I had an idea about this whole thing about copyright and all. Agreed. I mean, they could definitely have framed this like Facebook did. I just looked it up, where they have an unlimited grant to distribute the information, but don't actually own the copyright. Um, I wonder if part of this is, as somebody said, is based on some legal situation they found themselves in. For instance, you mentioned, Mel, that they don't really have content that the company has created to market the product with.
Mm.
Here's a real X-Files thought. Maybe somebody decided to go after them for using imagery of their Sims to market the product.
It's yeah,
without agreement, without payment, without.
Yeah, I mean, I guess that's true. I mean, there's no guarantee we would have heard of any action that we do hear of these actions like the one I mentioned earlier. But that is.
I mean, at the risk of walking right up to the edge. I mean, I can't talk about any specifics, but one can imagine that dealing with a teen sim area on something like Second Life might raise some interesting questions that might show up as policies that you probably don't want to talk about exactly in public.
And in the face of all of this, and they're not owning content, they still hold a tremendous level of liability.
Yeah.
That all of us are shielded from, frankly.
Right.
In their favor.
Yeah, I mean, we one of our discussions, of course, the endless discussion came actually through this. I think when Will was here, they have some sub account, an offshore account somewhere that handles the Linden economy. Now, that's not to say the Second Life accounts, but they only actually, I gather they only actually fiscally back up something like 10% of the actual Linden economy. So if anything ever happened, we wouldn't know about it until after it had happened. They can't afford a run on the bank if they said they were closing or selling. And the other interesting aspect, of course, is that if they're ever considering flotation, or it may just be a matter of getting more investors, they want to actually be able to list assets. And the so-called copyright grab might simply be a way of saying, well, we also have all these assets.
Right.
Even in theory, they're the user's assets. So there could be there are lots of things that, like the question we heard earlier. Think of this from the lab's point of view. There are a lot of things that could justify this. I don't think any of them, to my mind, justify the copyright claim. I think you can list. You don't have to own something to list it as an asset. If you have sole distribution rights, that's almost as good in terms of an asset listing.
Sure. One thing just to toss in, by the way, about the now I'm trying to remember. And before the asset question,
Liability.
Liability, copyright.
Oh yes, about the Lindens and convertibility. I haven't checked it recently, but I know some years ago it was explicit in the agreement that there's no guarantee that Lindens are convertible to real hard currency.
No.
Because otherwise it starts looking like a bank. And so this whole thing about a run on the bank, well, yep, there's no guarantees there. It's not like there's some federal guarantee program like with a real bank.
Well, this in many ways applies to virtual goods. I was quite horrified to learn. I mean, it's probably a year ago now since the issue came up. But Bruce Willis, the movie star, has a vast collection of music, and he wanted to bequeath it to I believe it was his niece. And because a lot of it he bought from iTunes, he wasn't able to, because apparently Apple turned around and said, no, you don't own these tracks. You simply have a licensed copy to play, but it's limited to you. It can't be transferred. It is not bequeathable.
Wow.
And now I look at
Wow.
I'm sitting here on a huge collection of CDs, and it'd be lovely to give these to a nephew or something who's got a passionate interest in it when I sort of cast off the mortal coil or whatever it is. But I can't do, apparently anything in iTunes, particularly, I can't do that with. I don't see what's stopping them taking over my account, but technically, I don't own what I bought. And there seems to be an
Well, because you didn't
increase.
buy it.
Exactly. I'm simply licensing a copy of something. I don't have any, it's a virtual commodity. I don't have any physical thing to hold in my hand and say, this is mine, I bought it, or even nicked it, Yeah, okay. It's just not there. It's in the air somewhere. But increasingly, everything we do online. It's just more and more services, and you really can't be sure unless you actually take the time to read it. Everybody's small print. What control you have.
So Mel, I just want to say, add one little thing that years ago, there were all these discussions about virtual worlds, and they're really parallel to a lot of the discussions about social media and how, various folks say that relationships and friends, and I don't even, relationships, just people in these various places, that those are not real, right? And the analogy I used, which has been really a conversation stopper for folks who try that line of questioning, is to say, okay, so tell you what, last time you were in your living room, and let's see, you've rented from Netflix, right, or on demand on TV on cable, right? And so what happens there? You sit in front of this glowing tube and you watch some pixels, and it goes on for like an hour and a half or so. And I mean, you've paid for it. You've paid real money for it. And at the end of it, you turn it off. And so what is it you own out of that purchase?
Yeah, you own the right to watch it for 1.5 or 2 hours, and
Yeah,
that's
exactly.
it.
Exactly.
You
Good one.
probably can't watch it. You probably
Yep.
can't watch it again without paying again.
Right.
This brings me to, well, actually, not this specifically, but you hinted at something on the relationship front a minute ago.
I should have known
One of the
better.
things that Tara raised, which was right for conversation, was the bot girl thing and disassociation. Now, I tended to agree with Bot Girl's premise of sort of detachment and things, and he looks back on the I don't know, the golden era or something. But the one point I differ in is I do reflect on that period of time a little bit, and I would actually say that it isn't so much the virtual world has changed, though it has, but I've probably changed. I've grown used to it. To me, it's second nature now. So the fascination has worn off. I just come in world to do things. It's just another part of what I do. It's the wonder of exploring it that you have at first has sort of worn off for sure, but it doesn't make it any less useful to me or a valid, future communications platform, for want of a better word, a description, should I say. But where I differ from Bot Girl is that I didn't, oddly enough, in that period, find myself connecting, in this wonderful, serious world of meeting a lot of people as avatars. I did meet them as avatars, but I was fully aware very quickly if they were in real life, and it opened up a lot of back channels. So it wasn't, to me, restricted to the avatar environment. It was simply that one used avatars to be present with those people in communication.
I will say that I think that Second Life and other platforms like this have are evolving a new psychology. I cannot divorce who I am in real life from my avatar. But when I'm in world, nor can I divorce my avatar from me. I mean, there is a melding going on that I become different in world with my avatar than I am in outside of Second Life. There's something going on that's blending things that I think is going to evolve on a psychological level in the future.
I think we get Linden Labs for whatever reason called this Second Life, and but I think in terms of personality, it's second self. Now whether that it's an alt in itself. We refer to secondary avatars as alts, but in fact, your primary avatar is an alt of yourself. And my avatar looks younger than the real me, but actually probably looks closer to a younger real me. I always wanted my avatar to look like me because I saw it as an extension of myself. Where other people will just want to be a big dinosaur or something. Sorry, Joel. And well, they see the avatar as an exploration of something else. And to be honest, when I'm not live doing shows like this, I'm running around world as a little pussycat, and I love the feeling of being in that pussycat. So it's almost exploring life from a pussycat's viewpoint. It's very agile and quicker and nice. There's a certain nice to that. But I have no qualms about turning into a human avatar and being me myself. I'm talking on the show, and I might as well just be on webcam, which we used to do. It's different strokes for different reasons. Now, a lot of people criticize Second Life, for example. They're gamers, say, oh, the graphics aren't real enough and blah, blah, blah. But of course, gamers are used to playing games where the platform provider is providing the hardware, software to run a game. It has a beginning, middle, and the end, and it doesn't include all the improvised stuff and the creativity, the participatory stuff we do in virtual worlds. So there's a compromise. You can't have a Second Life that's as good as a game because we actually need to partake in creating things as opposed to just doing, trotting around the platform. And to me, that is always the magic of it, the presence, as it were. I can be in a world meeting, with half a dozen people who come from all the corners of the globe, and we're talking about a particular topic we're passionate about. Our avatar personality maybe look or how superficially be different from our real world personality, but as the conversation continues, you forget that. Avatar friendships are like pen friends of old. You are in touch with these people, and at the moment, we're graphically and various other things, we're restricted to the capabilities of the platform, but it's no less real for that. Now, obviously, there are people who say pop in at the weekend into Second Life, and they role play. Maybe they live in a trailer park or something. So the idea that they can come in world and have a huge mansion and a private island appeals to them. Nothing bad, I hope, in what I just said. That's just a random example of how escapism can sort of take over. And maybe a player is quite young and fancies role playing somebody who's older and wiser, just as it happens the other way around. So
well, I think part of what happens in that situation, and I think it happened for me because my avatar is like the ideal version of me.
Yeah.
And definitely much younger. And so I allow her to do things that I wouldn't necessarily do in real life. And people relate differently to her than they would necessarily to me in real life. And I think that happens with people. If you come in and you have this mansion, you have a whole different perspective. If you go in as a cat, people have a different reaction to you, and those kinds of interactions start to get woven.
Yeah, I've got to admit, my cat. I do get people coming up to my cat who I don't know, and they want to pick me up and all sorts of things. I mean, it has that reaction with people, and I to be honest, there's a lot of reasons I use the cat. If you want to do some quick filming or get somewhere around quick, I'm wearing hardly anything on terms of the prim count. I'm very agile. And it's really useful avatar in many ways, other than being just a nice cute cat. But you're quite right there. I most of the time, and maybe this is a change that's happened over time. When I log in, I could log in to do this show or go to an event or something. And people know me by name, so they don't really give a toss whether I'm a cat or not. They see me come into the radar and say, "Hi, Mal," And I'm fairly uninhibited in real life, So, I don't actually find myself doing things in Second Life that I probably wouldn't do in real life, well, unless they're particular virtual sort of things. So, I don't find any disconnect, put it that way. That's me.
Hmm.
I realize there are differences because this avatar cannot look like a hologram of me as yet. One day, probably, but not yet. When that day comes, I'll have to choose whether I appear as a hologram or I invent a fictional hologram, I suppose. So, although it probably won't come in my lifetime, but the theory of it. But
I,
to me, to me, it's all very real. It's far more compelling than being on the telephone with somebody or even having I sit here a few times a week having meetings on Skype, and that's quite fine because I know all the people, the voices, and
mhm.
I don't need to have Second Life open to have that meeting. But if I want to demonstrate to somebody in that meeting something, invariably I log in so that I'm in World 2 and can show what I'm talking about to them. So it's got all this facility over and beyond telephony. It hasn't got the realism of video call, but that video calls tend to upset people. But I can demonstrate things, I can do things as well as talk to people, and it is. It's the 21st century's equivalent of a sort of telephone, especially for group meetings. And um,
Are
you
you
know,
talking about Skype or Second Life?
I'm talking about Second Life. I was sometimes
Oh,
used with Skype for clarity, but Skype is limited to voice and maybe the odd video.
right.
But in the virtual world, I can do things far exceed what I can do in Skype. I can demonstrate things. Is probably
Well,
the vaguest way of putting it.
I,
If can I get a word in here?
Yeah, sure, sure. Come on to
Um,
it. Yeah.
yeah, Rosamoo was talking about um, basically the ability to take on roles that roles or persona that are outside what might be possible for people in their real life existence. But
Hmm.
I guess the point I wanted to make is that we all play many different roles in our lives.
mhm.
We're adults, we're kids, we're parents, we're work colleagues, we're neighbors, and in every one of those roles, we're not the same person. There's
True. Yeah.
differences in what we
Mhm.
bring to the table. And I think what my sense of where virtual worlds fit into some of that is, it just expands the size of the plate. So there's more different ways. There's more ways that we can pony up to the table, and try out things. And I think that's one of the things that I think, particularly, I guess, for younger folks, um, that there are opportunities for some of that trying out different possibilities that that we may have done. Speaking of those of us who are well up there in adulthood, may have done in other ways when we were teenagers or preteens or young adults. Um, that virtual environments provide opportunities for. But I think the whole concept of trying out different persona is anything but new, but
Hmm.
that virtual environments provide a bunch of new ways to do so, and a range of possibilities that very well may expand our possibilities.
Yeah.
Oh, yes.
Yeah. You said. Yeah.
And I'd say
Perfectly said. Yeah.
even as an adult, trying out things that have changed my real life perspective.
Hmm. Oh yeah, I think
It's
there's
wonderful. It's
certainly,
wonderful.
yeah, there's certainly things as an adult that a virtual environment provides opportunities to try out. I mean, last week we were talking about the subject of uh, yeah, yeah, the video, last week's video. Oh yes, names. Just gotta love it. Yeah, about the woman, the 80 some odd year old woman with Parkinson's,
Oh yeah.
and how she has found, by virtue of being in Second Life, that her physical mobility has improved because of the way she can mirror physical activity in Second Life
Oh,
that is then is being translated by her brain into her body.
Mm.
and enabling her to move better.
There was the best quote of that piece. It was a Draxter film. Was
Yes,
Second Life is making me younger. Isn't that wonderful? To just think, that somebody's logged in and physical and mental health is improving because of it.
That's
astonishing.
It's a great marketing line if they were going to start promoting Second Life to on the AARP website. I don't think it would fly particularly well with a teenage audience.
Very true. But yeah, very true. But you can't be all things to everybody. That is just one of the things that is so compelling. I don't know if that was the case for me, but I like to think that might be. Would I be more of a wreck in real life if I wasn't in Second Life now and again? Interesting thought. But coming back to
okay, hold it. I noticed that Joel has to depart, and so perhaps we ought to give him a chance for whatever closing parting thoughts before he has to blast off.
Ironically, I was going to lead into Joel with this anyway. It's still back on the seminar of Poe thing. I was actually I was actually going to lead into all of us. The differences. I think we've all what you might call old timers as far as Second Life's concerned here. What differences we have noticed over time, and the what Bolgo mentioned about disconnect or whatever. But yes, let's start with Joel. I mean, your my allusions earlier on to your involvement with Lyndon's, that's ancient history, of course. But I mean, you've one way or another, you've been around the platform for a long while. Have you felt that changes have created any kind of disconnect, or is it the opposite? I'd just like to ask you that before you round up anyway.
Well, I mean, in terms of a disconnect, let me make sure I answer the right question. What do you mean by what do you mean by disconnect?
Well, we're all used to this platform. We can find our way around in it. We know our stuff. Well, with certain limitations. Still can't get very far with the prims, but that's another matter. So some have talents, some don't. But, we know the platform. We can get by. It's almost second nature to log in, do something, log out. We're beyond the point of being, say, distracted by the platform. Sure. We simply know it enough to know how to use it to whatever we want to use it for, our own desires. I think what Botgirl was alluding to was that there was this magic period where in her case, she said, she met all these fellow professionals or people in different fields, whatever, and met them as avatars and resonated with them as avatars. I was saying I disagree because I tended more to resonate with them as real people. I tended to get to know them as real people. But I think her thing was that there came a point of disconnect. And I think that's maybe down to familiarity.
Right.
Or you have less use for the platform, maybe in your personal life. I don't know. So really, I'm hunting here for impressions that you might have had over time.
I mean, I guess I've not been on as much by far. I have to say, having worked for the company in the innards of making it go is a good way to remove some of the wonder and external view.
Yep.
I mean, not in a bad way. That can come out wrong, but it's just when you're involved in constructing a large system, you almost know too much about how it works. And so I found that when I was in as a resident, in and after I was working for the company, I would almost have to mentally flip a switch and say, okay, forget about all that. This is just what it is. And it was a really interesting disconnect when somebody would come back to me, and they even still do, believe it or not, and say, well, Joel, I'm having this problem. What's wrong here? Can you help? Who can fix it? What's the problem? And I have this mental disconnect about flashing to the architecture diagrams and how it works and thinking to myself, okay, probably it's over there. But I don't work there anymore and haven't for years.
Yes.
So that's one reaction. I go ahead, but I only have a couple minutes, and I really have to jump. But,
Well, the thing that springs to mind is that no sooner had you left the lab, then you were here with the weekly thing we used to have. We Are the Network
Yep. Yep. Yep.
Now that's long gone too. But
Right.
to me, rather like Pathfinder Lester, who also left
Yep.
the lab, he's got the Hypergrid Adventurers Club and sort of thing. Yeah, there are a few former Lindens who immediately jumped in as residents, if you like, and
Oh,
pursued private paths of conversation, of
yep.
collaboration, of involvement on the platform. And so,
Yeah.
it struck me certainly for the longest of whiles while we had a network was running that you were still in here and actively extending the
Right.
use of the platform for something you wanted to do rather than what the lab
Yeah.
wanted.
And I think that, for me, the issue that has really not ever been fixed is the um, accessibility is the wrong word, but it's the right word. Not accessibility in the sense of folks who have low vision or things like that, but the fact that it's still a heavyweight platform and that people can't join in just with a telephone or just with a smartphone or I mean, they can in a very limited way.
Mm.
Hmm.
But so, I've been wrestling with for a very long time how to do something like We Are the Network using other platforms. I did some experiments with web conferencing stuff and other things. Um, and I think it's possible. And there is a certain level of engagement that you only get here, but then there's the trade-off of that against the audience, where the audience is a pretty narrow slice of the world. And so if you're really trying to do something that has broad reach, this requirement that you have this big, heavy client that requires a high-powered machine, and even if it doesn't require a high-powered machine, you can't run it on a laptop for more than 20 minutes before killing the
Yeah,
battery.
yeah.
that it's sort of an audience restriction problem that is driven by the technology piece that hasn't been addressed, to use
I
big
think
words.
so. I gather lab are actually beta testing with invitees only,
Right.
a lightweight client on whether it's just Android or on iPad too. I'm not sure, but they
Yep.
they are doing something like that, which I think is crucial.
Yep.
Because I've got virtual spaces on the iPad I can go into, and there's even a World of Warcraft like thing that I didn't download. It's not my cup of tea. I don't want to be a
Right.
goblin or a warrior, but it's powerful stuff. It's like
Yeah.
World of Warcraft being available on the iPad.
Right.
But
Uh,
I think it's a compelling reason for getting people in here because
Yeah.
if you've got a book club or something like that and you have a fixed audience already, and then you decide, wouldn't it be great if we had some of our meetings in Second Life? That is a great way of introducing oneself to or colleagues to a platform. But I think you're absolutely right. You got if you're after a target audience of any size, you can't rely on Second Life to get to it. Even broadcasting to them
Right.
as video,
Yeah.
it's a niche thing.
The
Uh,
adoption hurdle is pretty high. And
yeah,
I mean, we've known this for years. It's not news, right? But I mean, one of the things I've been tinkering with and haven't really had much time to play with is Cloud Party to see if that, fixes some of those problems. It clearly, just sort of watching what they're up to makes it look like they're headed for the same direction if they can make it work.
yeah.
But unfortunately, I'm going to have to jump. I've got dad taxi duty
Okay.
knocking on the door.
Well, I'll just hand over to Tara quickly. I think she had a
Oh,
question.
yeah, well, no, I was just going to say thank you, Joel, for joining us, and
Ah.
we well understand your chauffeur hat having to come out of the out of the closet.
Great. Well, thanks very much. Good to see you guys.
It is really good to see you because we have tried several times
Take care.
various technical difficulties
Yeah.
we haven't made.
Yeah.
So really, thanks a lot for coming, and
Okay.
hope we'll see you again soon.
Okay.
Well,
Nice to
Thank
meet
you.
you, Joel.
we'll get Petlove to strategically move the camera while you go off in a poof, as we say.
Okay.
And
Thanks much, guys. See you later. Bye.
okay, bye for now. Well, we'll now continue the conversation.
Yeah, although Mel, knowing that Petlove has commitments, we probably ought to start
Yeah,
sort of moseying in a roundup direction too.
yeah, we've still got about.
Thank you, Tara.
Yeah, I had not forgotten that. I think we still got
Yes,
about.
well, we don't want to run all the right up to the moment she has to be someplace
No,
else.
we go.
That's what I.
No, that's
know,
over for today. That won't be happening
I
again.
I'm looking
Unless-
at the clock, and we still have 30 minutes before we really need to be wrapped up.
I
But
have
it's up
30 minutes of consciousness left, and I have to take a shower and get out to the store before I do collapse. So
Oh, brilliant.
So
let's
yes.
let me just put it that way.
Okay.
Thank you.
Let's.
Outworld raises its ugly head.
As we prepare to wrap up, then I will just open my little feed, my Inworld feed, which is different from my other feed. Twitter.com/Malburn Space Writer is my Inworld feed. For those of you who appreciate the plug or forgotten or don't know in the first place, basically just links as to what's going on. And I need to start. No, last week was the 3rd of November, wasn't it? So we'll just go through here. A lot of blog posts about Newville Horrors, which is that sim that came online 2 days after Halloween, but it's actually a permanent sort of Halloween themed sim. Apparently very immersive and worthy, that one. Lots of blog posts again from Honor Macmillan this week. Great. Another Day in Our Destination is what I call her blog. Interview in SL Inquirer, which would have been, it was on November the 4th, which was with a woman called Selena Green, who's the owner of Book Island. Those of you of a literary bent may like to check up that. That's SL Inquirer, all one word.com. Posted a few days back. In the absence of Sapphire, I might as well inform you that Prim Perfect has actually moved to the Seychelles. Not Sapphire, she's still in Oxford, I believe, but Inworld, the location of Prim Perfect's offices has changed. I think it's actually the same landmark, but there's been some kind of rejiggling going on. So she's now in the Seychelles Isles, if you have cause to visit Prim Perfect Inworld. Winter Night's Nightwear, Gladys Night in the Pip. So these are actually things that have passed. A lot of machinima coming online, and I haven't actually got any that I'm going to be showing later in the program, but a lot of recording machinima from Burn 2 that is now, of course, over. The sort of Burning Man equivalent in Second Life, performance videos and just silent film footage of a lot of the builds and stuff like that. If you look on YouTube, you'll find a whole load of Burn 2 stuff, so nice to see that. We've already mentioned several times Bot Girl's blog on Indifference and Disillusionment. And now something else. I think Honor did a post on this, and there have been several others. But Noble New England is apparently a new environment simulation in Second Life that's getting a lot of attention. I think we actually showed a sort of clip on that either last week or the week before, and it's quite an extensive build. I don't know whether it's one sim or more, but it does look quite big. Feel free to interrupt here, by the way, Rosamoo and Tara, if you know of any of these things and have comments.
I'm just making notes of places to go.
Okay. Right, Loki Elliott, who's he posted something a couple of weeks ago we drew attention to. I forget what it was, but he's actually announced he's taking a short break to think about Second Life related things. Loki Elliott is one of these sort of genius people in Second Life. He's involved with the Tinies and all sorts of things, but he has these really quaint and sort of interesting sort of things he builds and stuff like that, and sort of thoughts.
I was going to comment on the the well.
Oh yeah,
adventure.
Yeah.
Actually, that I said that is so familiar, and I realized why it was really familiar, and that is a year ago, or a bit over a year ago, when he first opened that on its first round. I did a little machinima of my walkthrough.
Oh yes, actually.
Yeah. Now, from reading a bit of the recent blog post, it's obvious that he's added to it, and he's also taken advantage of the materials availability of that feature.
Right.
And certainly some of the pictures I've seen of the current of its current run are very indicative of the taking advantage of what materials will do for what textures look like. So if you want to see what it looked like a year ago, look up Tara Yates on YouTube.
Yeah,
and you'll find my little walkthrough from about a year ago.
It's funny, I remember that, and somehow it hadn't clicked that it was the same thing.
It is the
Um,
same thing, yeah, but
the
same but different. So
the show. Pardon me. The clip we showed at the beginning of the show today from Jatster was actually about the Leap device, but he actually the scenes that he was demonstrating it in were actually the well. So that's if you were watching earlier, that's a little plus point too. Okay. Um, there was a band they originally formed in Second Life called Choo Choo, and they're a very arty sort of group. They have a lot of installation art type installations too. And what the headline news this week was that they are closing their sim called the Babel. But I wouldn't worry too much because it's actually the official name of the sim is Choo Choo XVI, the Babel, which means it's their sim number 16. Apparently, they're not closing the other 15, so don't worry about Choo Choo going too far. They're just closing the 16 sim for some
yeah, I
reason.
think they closes and rebuilds before. So
Yeah, exactly. Let me see. The Lyrical Poetry Club has reopened. Find more about that at unforgettablemagazine.wordpress.com. I seem to pick up a lot of literary information, poetry clubs and book islands and things changing. So they've come across my radar quite quick. SL Great Expedition at blogspot.com are raving about a small sim called Tudor Rose. One to look at. We have some clips later again of this is not new, but a sim called Musiclandia, which I think may be one of the LEA sims. I can't be sure about that. We have a machinima from there coming.
yes, that is
Yeah. And courtesy of Daniel Voyager, midweek, he gave a little sneak preview on his blog, danielvoyagerwordpress.com, of the Relay for Life events that are happening in the Inworlds platform, and I think the winter seasonal RL Relay for Life thing there is more or less now getting underway.
I think their actual relay was yesterday.
Oh, it was a one-day thing, was it?
I think so. Yeah. Well, the actual relay itself is a 1-day event. Is a 24-hour event.
Okay. Well, Daniel did post a preview in the week, and in that case, maybe we'll find out a bit about more and like how much funds were raised and stuff like that. And if we can find that out, we'll bring the news to you next week. Always very good cause, that's in whatever world it's happening in. Where are we? LEA again, the latest entry in their full sim art series for November is opened. You can read about it at lindenarts.blogspot.com. It's Lilia and Mo Haney, I believe is the right pronunciation, Time Machine. So that could be an interesting thing to check out. Right, those past events already. More about Newville. That's everywhere at the moment. Metaverse Tribune, which of course is the sort of occasional newspaper branch of Metaverse Television, actually, that had their metaversetribune.com. They had an interview earlier in the week about basically it's a real life jewelry designer who's bringing their talent and skill into Second Life. So those of you who are interested in real world, virtual world crossover type activities may well be, especially jewelry design, may be interested in following that one up. And Inara Praise blog, Modern World, WordPress.com, has actually also got a look at going down the well, following up what we just mentioned. And let's see. No, I think that's it. There was I haven't really followed this one up, but there was a recent post from Modern World, Noah Pray again, from Scotland to a preview of a tropical paradise. That was actually posted today, so I can't really tell you much more about that. But I obviously bookmarked it for a reason.
I suspect that is her weekly roundup of literary stuff, which she posts on Sundays.
Of course, yes, indeed. Which would explain once again, literally
the headline, yeah,
how it manages to get in my feed. I don't post the fashion stuff. I just post the hey bro stuff. Arts and literature and amazing destinations is my brief, as it were. So that's my little roundup. Let's move back before we round up the actual show. I'm going to ask everybody what's going on with them and anything new coming up. I'm going to start with Petlove herself, actually, who's been quite quiet. Sort of what's new? What's been happening with you, Petlove, in the last week or the coming week?
Well, a View TV did have a chance to live stream Gladys Knight and the Pips last night, but there was no
Ah,
available camera person. First time
ah,
they've been in Second Life. I don't know if they were going to, I think they were going to do some music, and I know there could be a little talking. It would have been so cool. So we have hopes that they might come back.
it would. That kind of sounded interesting to me. I think actually it was a member of the band talking and something else, and then it was actually just a tribute band that were playing. But these things are always.
No, it was Gladys Knight and the Pips. It
Oh,
was. It was the real people. They had gotten avatars and stuff.
oh,
And
got there.
they weren't
Huh.
planning on streaming or anything. They were just trying it or checking it out or something. And
Yeah.
they
Oh,
would have let themselves be streamed. They thought it was a great idea. They just couldn't get a
yeah.
camera person.
Oh God, and that's
Uh-huh.
is it? God, we've got to find lots more camera people. You know, God, that is
Yes.
sickening. Oh,
Well, that's also the sort of thing that it sounds like they didn't, the word didn't get around.
No, it wasn't meant to be a big thing. It was just a happenstance type of thing, you
yeah,
know.
I think
And
I
it's
mentioned.
just one of those nice things that does happen in Second Life, you know.
I think I
Yeah.
mentioned it last week because of the other connection particularly, but I didn't actually realise it was the band themselves were going to, because it was advertised as a tribute band or a tribute. So I guess I
Mm.
got the message a bit mixed up. That is a shame. Yes, I hope they come back and. It's like with the time Bruce Hornsby came in. He did the
Mhm.
full length concert, and all we got
It
is
was
one.
great. Were you
All
there?
we all we've got is one track of it on video.
Well,
um,
there's more of it
no,
on YouTube.
I didn't get there, so I would love to have a copy of that. You know, the whole concert. Yeah, I like Bruce Hornsby. So great stuff. Another liquid piano player you got there. Um, right. Anything else? Anything else? Obviously, filming a lot of happy huntings and
It's a shame we didn't get to talk more about happy hunting. Yeah.
well, I'm going
The
to get to
hunties are going to be exciting.
yeah, I'm going to get back to Rosamoo before we close.
Good.
And of course, the Black and Mirror forever
Yes,
and ever.
indeed. Like a locomotive, this
Oh,
series is going to be so good.
and only 1 month now before it starts showing. So,
Is that right? Yeah, I
well,
guess that's about right. We're
we're
right
in
on
no,
schedule.
we're in November,
Or
and
schedule, as some people
it's
say.
supposed to run in December. What day in December? I don't know, but I'm
I
really
think
looking
the
forward to
end
it.
of December.
Right.
Or maybe not. We'll see.
Over the holidays and into the new year. Perfect timing, really. Okay, Rosamoo. I mean, that is obviously another happy hunter coming up
Every 2 weeks.
shortly because it's every 2 weeks, and of course, occasionally we get Pet Love in there with the mini hunts as well, which is great fun because we can just slot them in anywhere. You know, not worried about the time. Those are great too because they're like little information bulletins about because hunts, new ones are online so rapidly as we know from your blog. I get your blog feed, and you've got about 20 posts a day in there some days. And asking this
Oh,
one,
it's amazing. Yeah.
and even posts for hunts that are far in the future or a couple of months in the future who are looking for the participants and stuff like that. So it's a very informative blog. But give us the full address again on there so people can memorize it.
It's really easy. It's huntsl.com.
Right. Okay. HuntSL.com.
.com.
Your one-stop destination for everything to do with hunting in Second Life. But we are reaching into the show, and as I say, we got hijacked by the other conversation. But it is a great program, Happy Hunting, and I was meaning to interrupt earlier, but I couldn't get an interrupt in. But I should point out that the show we are showing later is number 40. So you have reached a grand total of 40 episodes, which is what, over 2 years, I suppose?
That's right.
Yeah.
This fall was the end of our second year.
Well,
I
I've been with the show for since a year ago, September. I was on as a guest and got roped into
Yeah,
I
this
shouldn't say it
It's not
quite that
safe to
way,
be
I
a guest
suppose.
anywhere in Second Life. That's what roped
Oh,
me into
I,
it. Everything
right.
too.
I was just going to say it's not safe to guest anywhere where Saf is involved because you will certainly be
Or
roped in.
Pookie,
You'll be roped.
Amsterdam.
Yeah, you'll be roped in for several thousand other projects at the same time.
Safia and Pookie took a page out of the same book. They're great. Great
Yeah.
sort of
people.
drawn
Okay,
along in
so
their wake. And we will be the first show of the new year of 2014. I almost made your mistake. Will be about the Hunties. We'll announce the winners of
that's
the
awesome.
Hunties.
Right. Now, that before we go, in fact, tell us a little bit more about the Hunters. I mean, we mentioned at the beginning of the show, but is a kind of nomination system and what are the dates? And
It's wide open. We have the ballots are up available now. I've actually received a few in
Yay.
IM so far,
Oh, great.
or note card form actually, and
Mm.
they're just going to be voted on by the hunters, and hunters will submit the names of whoever they want, and
mm,
whoever gets
Is Can the
the
creators and the
highest
shop,
tally gets the winner.
can the owners and the organizers and the creators vote too, or if everybody gets
Basically, I
one
think
vote?
anybody who's involved in the hunt world will want to vote.
I
is,
That
hope
is
is,
a
so.
one vote per person.
Hmm.
is, it,
Um,
it's
Alts
so fun.
included.
It's so funny because the nominations for the Abbey Awards went in recently, and I was saying to people, nominate this show, because I was slightly involved in another show that very surprisingly won last year.
ah,
Not going anymore.
congratulations.
Um, it was on Metaverse TV called Metaverse Live, and out of the blue, it sort of won. I'm not even sure we knew it was nominated to the last minute. But I just felt, well, I can't nominate my own show. That's not the way things work. And everybody, Petlove included, I think, said, "Go on, nominate yourself." And you can't do that.
Well, you don't think you should be
But
nominated.
yeah, but tell me, then the nominations, voting, and stuff like that, is that wholly in World, or is it going to be on the blog?
It's the ballots are on both blogs, both on Hunt SL and at happyhunting.wordpress.com.
Right.
And but the people are supposed to copy them and put them in a note card sent to me, and then that way we keep track. One vote per Avi.
I'm with you. Right, fair enough. So you can find out all about it on Hunt SL, and you can come in World. And do they send an IM direct to you, or is the group they can join
Just
in World?
just send me a note card, and everything's on all the information's on the blog.
We should have a
How to do
group.
it.
Isn't there a group for happy hunting? I don't think there
Um,
is.
Hunt, no, Hunt SL has a group, but we don't have a happy hunting
That's
group. I'm afraid.
crazy.
Hmm.
Duh.
Idea.
Yeah. Start a group now,
Lord.
folks. Hey,
God.
actually, I'm like that. I've got a group for the Meta Hub here, and I think I have one for MBTV, and I bloody useless. I never remember to use it. I'm too busy twittering and Facebooking and all the other stuff that seems to be obligatory, and you forget about the in-world groups. It's just, how many buttons can you press?
We're
in different
supposed to be trying to
places?
publicize ourselves in Second Life. Group?
Oh.
A group? Ow, oh, that hurt.
Well, I guess
So-
the other thing, if we've got just half a minute,
Mm.
we are doing something a little different at Happy Hunting.
Right.
We've been doing live broadcasts the first on Friday afternoons, evenings. We've been showing the show with an audience, and we're basically going to not be doing that anymore, and we're going to be sending out prims that will to all of the people who are featured on the show, and they can post them in their stores, and people will just touch on them and get
They
they'll,
can watch
they'll
the show.
get taken right on to a web page to watch the show.
Yeah.
And people can
That's,
still go to the studio if they want. The Treat TV player is always up, and
Right.
we're on that.
It-
But yeah,
yeah.
we're going to change a little bit.
I think that's a good idea because even this show and the Weekend Review itself. I mean, we get the vast majority of our viewers play and replay. They're not around
The
right now.
kiosks are really neat.
Yep.
The way they work, it's real simple, and they don't take up too much room, and
One prim.
it's cool. Hmm. Yeah, and
Yeah,
Rosamoo, you
we're
made
going to
it.
see how that works.
Rosamoo's a builder.
Oh, good to know
Yes,
this.
I could make a box. and texture it and add a
Don't
script.
be modest.
Brilliant, brilliant.
I have got round to listening to Prim and flattening this and putting a channel on it. Is something I have mastered. What I've done with them and where I've distributed them, I haven't got a clue, but they're there somewhere. We all tend to be good at one thing and not the other, so I tend to get the show together, choose what I want to run. But publicity, what's that? Any volunteers out there? Want to publicise our shows, please? Get in touch. You're welcome.
You need a staff.
Indeed. Tell me, Rosamoo, anything else while we've got you here? I mean, we know you from Happy Hunting and we've heard about the hunters and everything else, but is there anything else that's been influencing you, getting you excited in Second Life recently, destinations or whatever, or anything coming up that you're really looking forward to next week? Or two or three?
I'm just treading water and trying to keep my head up. I mean, the hunt world is very overwhelming, and I feel like I'm doing a little bit of this and that and the other thing. I'm running a hunt, and I do a lot of hunting for the show, and that's about all I can manage.
And as I said earlier, though, that's a great way to explore. You just go on a hunt, and suddenly you're somewhere you've never been before, and you think, oh, there's far more here than just the price for the hunt.
Yeah, I got to be careful and watch those lindens.
Yeah. And the one thing, of course, we can't forget is that we're into November now. It's barely a few weeks before December, and it's like Halloween in Second Life. It happens at the end of the month, but in Second Life it starts at the beginning of the month. And I think the Yuletide season, wintertime, or whatever other festival you celebrate around the end of December, the build-up will be starting very shortly if it hasn't already. So there will be hunts galore.
Yes.
The winter hunts, they're always popping up. I did actually get a video this morning, which I'm not running, which was, I don't know, it's definitely a very Christmassy looking hunt, already started, complete with interface showing on the film and everything else that makes it unbroadcastable in my opinion, but they're at it already, so we're entering a busy time, I think, the holiday season.
Yes. This is, and then everything gets quiet in January.
Yeah. Shame, really, but New Year. Well, we got New Year's. That's a holiday too. Well. Okay, Tara. Wrap up time. Anything else you've got lurking in that wonderful mind of yours?
Boy, I'm drawing a nice big blank. Who knows? Maybe by a week from now. In my RL sim, I'm in the midst of having a major deck rebuilt. And this has caused a certain consternation among the feline residents of my household. And the lumber is almost all here except for the critical pieces of siding, which we needed actually first, because the siding needs to be replaced in one little area that is where the supports for the main deck surface run, and so that has to be done before the new deck can be put down. And that piece of that lumber should be arriving either tomorrow or the next day. But anyway, that's the RL sim, and I wish it was as easy to replace a deck surface in the real world as it is in Second Life.
Yes. That's for 2100.
And those poor felines chattering away, don't know what's going on. You've upset their world.
Yes, they have to walk the joists right now, which they do. I won't, but they do.
Well, I started moving things around here, sort of. I'm not really up to it these days. A few weeks ago. I'm still suffering the muscles, and yes, whether it ever gets finished, I don't know, but eventually, I suppose. These things are brought to triers, aren't they? Okay. Well, with that, we're going to wrap up the show because we've got to run off and do things, but not to fear. There's at least a couple of hours of wonderful machinima coming your way on the channel when we go off air from Showboat here. New machinima. Quite a heavy bunch of lifestyle this week, of course. We've got, I don't know what it's 40 or 50 minutes of Happy Hunting and 20 minutes of SL Fails, which... which is a good show. But we've got some arts machinima and some regular machinima and things like that. And interestingly, last week's machinima, there were a couple which obviously weren't Second Life, but they were actually machinimas that again came from Bot Girl, and I think a couple of them, if you were watching, were done in that plotagon that I mentioned earlier. Anyway, more of that when we play with it or whatever. So I'd like to thank our guests. He's long gone, of course, but Joel Foner, great to see him again. And Rosamoo Mendleson. He looks it up again. Rosamoo Mendleson from Happy Hunting and
Thank you for inviting me.
Hunt herself, more importantly.
Thank you for inviting me.
Absolutely good to have you here. Hope you'll come and join us again. It's sort of, if anytime you feel you've got anything to discuss or want to join the panel, just let us know and you'll be welcome, most welcome.
Oh, thank you.
And of course, thanks to Tara and Petlove, our my indispensable co-people in the whole enterprise. Thank you, Tara. Thank you, Pet. And absolute silence with that one. So
Sorry, thank you. It was a pleasure.
Okay, so we will leave you, but never fear, we will return same time, same place next week. If you want to watch this in replay, you can see the Inworld review on Malburn's account at YouTube, or you can watch the whole show as ever at Livestream or MBTV Live NU, which contains this show and all the rest of the stuff that surrounds it once a week. So thank you for watching, and I'm going to go to the studio and fire up the rest of the playlist.
And don't forget to say the word cut.
As ever at Livestream or MBTV Live NU, which contains this show and all the rest of the stuff that surrounds it once a week. So thank you for watching, and I'm going to go to the studio and fire up the rest of the playlist. And we're done.
That was very nice.